Throws it to Gabriel Ferreira, number 7, who's making a run. There's nobody in front of him. Oh, man.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to the No Beaters podcast. My name is Gabe, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Bryan and Nate as always, and we are back for another episode of the podcast. In this week's episode, we're going to do a quick, short and sweet episode, roundtabling what's going on within MLQ. So wrapping up what's been announced for coaching staffs for the upcoming MLQ season, as well as going over the MLQ new rule release with some really exciting rules that were posted in there. And then wrapping up with a quick discussion about the new newsletter that was announced that MLQ will be doing for the upcoming season. So a really exciting episode. Before we get into it, though, boys, any updates within what's going on in your worlds?
No, it's been a quietish week. I'm excited for the warm weather. That's the last 2 weeks have been a little nutty, at least here in the GTA. And I'm hoping nice, constant warm weather. That would be great.
Yeah.
I'm just coming to the end of my last semester at Ryerson, so graduating again pretty soon. So looking forward to get that done.
Nice.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, for me, just been working and enjoying the nice weather. I also got a nice little trim. Finally cut off the locks for the upcoming MLQ season. So looking forward to that. And it was definitely a shock. I remember when I went into the barbershop, and I told the because it was a new barber I was going to, and he was saying, "Oh, so what do you do with the hair?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm chopping it all off." And it was the guy's reaction was pretty funny. He was kind of scared. He's like, "Oh, okay." Like, as he started cutting, I'm just like, "Yeah, just cut her off." But it was quite the weight release. I think I probably lost a couple pounds just in hair, but it was quite the experience. But yeah, awesome. So we'll hop right into the episode then, and we'll start with, like I said, the coaching staff. So I know we had covered a chunk of the coaching staffs that were released within MLQ, but we'll kind of finish up the rest of them as they're listed. So we'll just start with the North. So Bryan, I know you have the list for Detroit and Toronto, I guess. But we'll start with Detroit. Any insight on the coaching staff announcement from Detroit?
So I'm just kind of looking over the names real quick. Let's kind of list them out. Willow Elser for manager. Sorry, I do not know her, but I bet she's going to do a great job. On the topic of coaching, before I say actual names, the interesting thing with Detroit is they went with volume. They have a total of 6 coaches. That's not a jab at them with like quality over quantity or anything like that. Like they're all probably great. I just think it's really interesting that they have, I believe, by far the largest coaching staff. Maybe it's like a proximity thing, because I know there's a lot of like Michigan schools, like they have kind of a little bit of a spread out area. So maybe they're doing it that way. So they have like 2 or 3 coaches in one area, 2 or 3 in another. I don't really know the situation. But all in all, once again, I go back to the whole, I don't like the Detroit font. I'm trying to read their newsletter. I can't even read the thing. Keegan Madeline, head coach. I'm sorry, don't know him. David Banis, assistant coach. I do know, great player. Jeanette High, assistant coach. Once again, great player. And then for the last 3, JD Hopton, assistant coach. Cam Niffen, I think I've heard her name a couple times, and Emma Vasquez. I don't really know any of them particularly well. I believe I've heard Cam Niffen's name a couple times. I think she's been mentioned in a couple podcasts and whatnot, but they went for the volume approach. Very interesting. But yeah, that's all I got. And then there's another scrub team in the North that decided to make a very interesting hire, which now brings our podcast to 3 for 3 for coaches. Yeah. I know you guys are opposing us, so it's it's Katie Brown has taken over as manager, as well with her duties for Quidditch Canada national team. So she's kind of pulling both
Yeah,
roles.
she's busy. Very busy.
Yeah. And then we have the Quidditch Canada head coach, Michael Howard. Howie is the head coach. And then we have Tweedledee, which is me. Actually, I'm Tweedledum probably. And Tweedledee is Alex Scherzer. So me and Sugar are the assistant coaches. Pretty much he's taking the beating side. I'm taking the quaffle side. And Howie's just kind of making sure we don't screw it up. I would say that's probably the most apt apt description of what's going on. But I think we have a good group. I'm looking forward to it. I would have loved for another coach, but we're down to 3. We're slowly dwindling for the Raiders, but that's okay. We'll deal with it. But no, it's gonna be a fun season. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, my bad luck does not persist, and we actually have a season this time to play. Because currently I'm 0 for 2.
Oh, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't want to sound biased, but I think in terms of experience at the national level when it comes to Quidditch, I mean, you guys have arguably some of the big hitters, quite frankly. So yeah, it'd be really interesting to see how you guys kind of fare in the North. I think you guys have a solid coaching staff, and wishing you guys all the best. And just make sure when you guys play us in the Scavenger Showdown, or play nice. And,
claws up. I can't remember what our hashtag is. It's been a while. I got to look it up. But yes,
I think it's raid the 6, isn't it?
Yes, raid the 6.
Yeah, we're claws up. You guys are raid the 6. So
I think we do need to workshop that one. I'm going to talk with Katie and Howie and Sugar. I think there might be a need for it, but I can't remember who's running the social media right now. But I think we need to workshop it. Something new. But yeah, that's. I think that wraps it up. 6 for 6 in the North.
Yep.
So what do we have? We have 2 left in the East. So do we want to go with that?
Yeah, let's go there. So we'll look at the Titans. So I have a list here actually. So the New York Titans. We'll start with the manager. This font is quite small. So forgive me, I'm probably gonna mispronounce his name, but Asher Kurtz Freelich. I definitely botched that last name. I apologize.
Freelich, something like that. Yeah.
Freelich. Yeah, it looks like maybe German. I don't know. I don't want to mispronounce the name, so I apologize. Should be taking over as manager. And then we have the head coach, Frank Mason, as well as 4 assistant coaches, Rachel Ayala Silver, and then you have John Jackson and Lindsay Morella to round out these coaches. So, what do you think of the coaching staff for New York, defending East Division champs from last year?
I would say that is the most stacked set of assistant coaches when it comes to star power. You have arguably one of the best female beaters in North America. Or I think she should be somewhere up near national team. I don't know the status of who's still playing with like some of the older U.S. national team members, but Rachel Ayala Silver absolutely killed it last year. And then you have the deadly combo of John Jackson and Lindsay Morella. I guess that's something you got to work with. Like, right there, those 3 are absolute stars and experienced and smart players. So if that's who you're leading with, I'd say that's a good call. And then Frank Minson, who's also, very, very experienced, very solid beater. Yeah, that seems like a very goal-oriented team that's ready to kind of follow up their last season, I would say.
Yeah, they definitely went the route with putting their their experienced players, their top players in that leadership position. Some other teams kind of have a mix of like new players and vets, but this team has definitely like put their core members in like that coaching position, returning from last year after that successful season they had. So it'll be interesting when we play against them and how they fare against the rest of the Eastern Division this summer. I'm definitely excited to play against them this year for sure.
What's your thoughts on the most notable name on that list that's absent, which is Michael Yada Parada, who
Mm.
I don't even know how many years he's been the coach because I wasn't following MLQ or probably even playing Quidditch at that time when he started coaching. Um,
Mm.
Obviously, for those who don't know, he is the U.S. national team head coach, as far as I remember, unless that's changed. But yeah, I guess maybe he's taking a step back and saying, someone else do it. I've done this for long enough. I've taught you well. Show me what you got. But yeah, I was a little surprised not to see his name on there.
Yeah, it was definitely the first thing I noticed right away. It was seeing it, like not seeing his name part of the coaching staff, and there was nothing wrong with it. It was like I said, he's been so, at least as long as I've been with Black Bears, he's been coaching within the New York Titans ranks. So definitely a shock for me. But again, like you said, like you almost have alluded to, like John Jackson, Lindsey Barella, like they have like a solid coaching staff. What I like about it is that's going to be perhaps a little bit nicer when it comes to film review, because you're going to have a little bit of a better sense in terms of what sort of players you'll be dealing with, perhaps understanding some of their sort of tactics and whatnot. Whereas with some of the other teams having a newer coaching staff, they're kind of up in the air in terms of what they're going to be doing. But I mean, yeah, it's all coaching staff all around. But yeah, it was definitely a shock not seeing his name as part of the coaching staff. But I don't know. We'll see. I think regardless of who's coaching, New York's going to have a solid team anyway. So it's yeah, it'll be quite the series when we do play them. It's going to be our opening series and all that. So but that'll be interesting.
I'm unsure if Frank Minson's a real person actually right now. He looks exactly like Michael Parada. I looked at him and I was like, there was a reason why I confused him for a second. And I just pulled up a Facebook picture. If anyone wants to see right here, Michael Parada, Frank Minson. So maybe they are just one person and they're just acting that way to avoid an age restriction that doesn't really exist in MLQ, but yeah, very noticeable similarity.
Huh. I did not even notice that. Wow.
The real MLQ mystery. Let's move on to Boston, who I just realized has a larger head coaching staff has the same size coaching staff as Detroit, which
yeah, they have a pretty big squad.
Although they do have two managers, so I guess the coaching staff size title still remains with Detroit technically. But they did go with two managers, which is interesting. I guess, do you guys happen to know anyone from this list? I'll kind of give it to you guys because you guys actually are from the East.
Yeah, I mean, the name that stands out to me that obviously Max Hadlin, assistant coach, phenomenal beater, like guy's terrifying. And then I also do recognize Finn
McGargan.
Yeah, McGargan. I do recognize him as well. Trina Montero as well, recognize her. I don't recognize the practice squad head coach, Michael O'Connor. So I'm not familiar with him, but I do recognize those three that I mentioned. And it's quite the stacked coaching staff, at least. And yeah. Boston was going to be tough to play, but when you have a solid coaching staff, it definitely makes things even tougher. So,
yeah, and I know as far as the others, like Tom DeMuth is head coach. I know he's an experienced beater. Like he's played a fair bit in college, and I think he's in club right now. I believe I heard his name the last couple of years for Boston. The thing that comes to this when I look at him, though, you're beating behind a fair amount of people when it comes to Boston. There are veterans that have ran that team. Not like it, I'm not saying this in a negative way, but they've been there for so long with so much success that it's hard to get that playing time for like a younger player. Because if like you're always trying to be the best and you're always trying to like keep your winning streak going, it's hard to develop those players without kind of falling off, right? Unless they perform right off the bat. So I don't know him as much as I could. I know he's played for a while because I've heard his name for a while, and maybe he's ready to kind of step up and take a bigger role. They've had Nick Jablonski as a previous head coach, and he's not there. And I think it was Greg Bento last year. So like maybe they're just kind of rotating through, and maybe they kind of wanted to get some experience with maybe some of the older players leaving soon. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting pick. But yeah.
Yeah, I think they're also the only team who has an assigned practice squad head coach with Michael O'Connor. So maybe like in the future he may make that transition up into like the Boston Forges competitive teams leader or coach staff. So maybe they're also developing their coaches as well as they go along.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Like MQC exists, which is the Massachusetts Quidditch Conference, which is basically not a year round, but like school year round conference that all the Boston area teams play in, and they compete against each other to stay in certain rankings. It helps them qualify for nationals and whatnot, but it's a good way of like developing talent that everyone's familiar with each other. So like if you're all a conference, you're feeding into a MLQ team right away. So I guess they kind of have a nice pipeline going.
Yeah, I was gonna bring this up at the end. I guess we'll kind of bring it up now. Good kind of talking point here, but on the topic of developing talent, especially when it comes to coaching, one thing I at the beginning of the year was like, because obviously I'm sure MLQ has had a hard time, especially given the summer commitment, et cetera, in terms of finding volunteers that are willing to coach and sort of develop certain programs. So I kind of want to get your guys' thoughts in terms of like what kind of goes into like having a good coach, as well as like how do you develop a coach and like make people feel comfortable kind of stepping into these roles. Again, it's a big commitment. What are some of the characteristics that you would kind of look for in an applicant, and how do you think maybe MLQ can kind of develop coaches in the future and make it less of a daunting sort of task in terms of applying for to be a coach in general?
It's a good question. Frankly, I don't have a perfect answer because I think Canada, like Quidditch Canada, kind of suffers from the same problem. Like programs kind of live and die by their head coaches and leadership, and if they don't have great leadership, it kind of falls apart or really starts to drop off for you, right? I think a lot of it is like you got to have a culture going in. Like, hey, if so and so is leading it, like we've had Yara lead for the last 3 years now of our program, and she's taking a step back to like relax a little because she's earned it. But like you need people who are willing and ready to step up. After my first year, I was like, hey, I want to be a coach now. Like, I want to try this because I think we came off of the Ottawa Otters season, where it's a team full of veterans, and I wasn't in really a leadership role in any way for Guelph because we had more established players. Although I was one of the older ones, it was, hey, we have a leadership structure here. Awesome. And it worked. We did great. But if you don't have opportunities for some people, like when all three of our old coaches, Brad, Sam, and Denver, retired, they had 3 people ready and waiting, which were great picks. Ryan Yee, Zach McDonald, and Jeremy Burrows-Balka. Same scenario happened with Royal City. But you got to have people lined up. You can't have someone like they were grooming those people for the last couple of years. You can't just be like, hey, you're going to be a coach now. Because that person's going to look at you and say, ha, good try. Like, good joke. April Fool's was a couple days ago. That's not happening. Like, you need to groom people to be coaches without a title. Have them run a drill. Have them do something like. I think it's really a culture thing. And I don't really. I guess it kind of leads into the last division of where we're at because, as far as we're aware, we don't really know. New Orleans doesn't have coaches right now. They might just not announce them, but like that's the scenario that you don't want to end up with. Nate, what are your thoughts on the whole developing coaches?
I have a few points I kind of jotted down. So I think one thing, just being experienced in the game, not necessarily having coaching experience, whether it's in Quidditch or out Quidditch, but just having experience being a Quidditch player, knowing how the game runs, knowing some strategies, and just having some understanding of the game helps to make that transition. Like for myself and Gabe, we're going into MLQ this year as our first exposure to being coaches in Quidditch. So having that experience as a player and going through MLQ season a few times or a few seasons out as a player definitely helps understanding kind of what to expect during the course of a season. But I think like one thing in terms of comparing MLQ to like QC, with MLQ you usually have like a leadership team. It's not just one person. Well, you have like a head coach, but there's not one person kind of in charge of all the coaching. You have some sort of coaching staff that kind of gets delegation of what they're running, whether they're running chasers or beaters, whatever it may be. But having a leadership group definitely makes coaching less intimidating, where I feel like in QC it's usually like one or two people kind of doing everything. Like you may have your head coach and then like a beater coach if your head coach is a chaser or a quaffle player. But definitely having a leadership team and like a leadership group and not just kind of having everything fall on the shoulders of one person definitely makes coaching less imitating to kind of make that transition into. And then also feel like there's a lack of like a mentorship program or some sort of pipeline, like you said, Bryan, about not really getting the opportunities like as a player to kind of get exposure to what it's like to be a coach. Like you said, like being able to like run a drill or practice, having someone who can like you can take under your wings and like kind of seeing them as like the next coach of your university program, for example, and being able to kind of instill some confidence in them and some knowledge in them as well, and kind of making a transition or smoother transition into finding like a new head coach. Because I find sometimes going into seasons you may not know who the head coach is going to be, and like not having that sort of pipeline or that sort of system of like who's going to take over the team can make it hard sometimes to kind of get the season underway.
Yeah, I'd also throw in there, if you don't want to be a coach, you can be an assistant manager. You can help out on the manager side because that's always helpful. Like having someone run the social, having someone run like planning and like logistics. Like, hey, I'm going to help make sure we have carpooling, or I'm going to help make sure we have practice space. Like those non-official capacity jobs. You don't want to go like too many cooks in the kitchen, but like, hey, if you realize that like you have an opportunity to step up, approaching your coaching staff and see if they need any help. Like you just got to take one step, and really that's the first little step that you take.
Yeah, like taking some sort of responsibility definitely helps build that confidence and like helps you kind of take that next step if you do want to go into like an official coaching position at some point.
Yeah.
For sure. Awesome. Yeah, so then we'll go into the a few more teams. Because I don't think we covered any of them in Minnesota. Did we? We had one we covered.
We had Kansas City. That was the only team that was previously covered.
Perfect. So we have League City, San Antonio, and Austin. And as you mentioned earlier, Bryan, we don't have New Orleans because unfortunately they haven't posted coaching staff there. So do you want to start off, I guess, with Austin then, maybe?
Sure. Let's start with. I guess we started this recording with the largest coaching staff. We're gonna start with the smallest coaching staff, which are two people. You have Katie Stewart, who is the assistant coach. Frankly, I don't know her, but she stepped into a big role. Next to some guy named Augie Monroe. I guess that's a pick for head coach. For those who can't tell, I'm being very, very dryly sarcastic right now because he's probably the best player of all time. I don't know what his past leadership in MLQ is. Obviously, he's been a leader for like Texas Quidditch and Cav and probably with U.S. national team as well. But I don't know his exact experience because it's usually someone else taking it. But yeah, they're going with 2 people. Maybe no one wants to step up into manager until like after something happens so that they can like keep themselves open for like a roster spot. I don't frankly know. Yeah, it's cool. They have the experience. They've won how many years now, so I would say they know what they're doing. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to struggle at all. I think, like I said, Algamiro is kind of good, so I think I think they'll be more than in good hands. And obviously, I'm not familiar with the case is either, but I'm sure she'll be great addition to the coaching staff as well. So, yeah, I think it's short and sweet with Austin. I'm sure they'll do great things again this season. So,
yeah. I guess moving on, we'll go to the next largest coaching staff, which is League City. Frankly, I only know one name on this roster, which is Ashton Crash, which is his Facebook name. Sean Lewis is the head coach. Fairly experienced player. I think he's pretty like out and about in the like Houston community. I frankly, for the one team that both Canadian franchises have played against, I don't frankly know much about League City. They had some great players, they had some great beaters, but I never have an opportunity to watch a lot of their games because the games that like I want to watch are rather not filmed or filmed very poorly.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm sorry, but I really don't know much about them. But I think this is another like fresh staff though. I don't know if any of those names are like returning people at all. So I think they're trying something new, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I kind of wish I knew more about League City as well. Because like I said, we did 2018 the championship weekend, but no, it's kind of because I like going back to our whole jersey episode. They definitely have probably one of my favorite jerseys in the league, if not the like my most favorite jersey in the league. So definitely have to watch them a little more closely this season. But
yeah. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see when the roster comes out. Maybe there's changing on the guard. Maybe something else is going on. I don't know. Last but not least, we have San Antonio, who at 4 people is the largest of the South coaching staff so far. I think Kansas City was only 3 as well, but I could be mistaken. Sarah Brooks, I'm not familiar with. Bradley Himes, I've heard about, and I think I've seen him play, and he's quite good. And then Christian Cortez and Maya Hinebau or Hinebau. I once again pronunciations like we're not particularly great. I've seen Maya play Seeking. She's quite good. The weird thing for me, like the New York Titans team, it's the notable exception that really gets me, in that we don't have Miguel leading the team. For those like who don't know, Miguel is probably one of the fastest Quidditch players out there. He's just incredibly talented. He's just bullied myself and many other people like rather throughout playing for Mexico at Pan Am's or playing for San Antonio at MLQ in 2019 and 2021. Did he win the 2021 South Division MVP?
Yeah, he did. He did.
Yeah. Miguel Esparza.
He won it. He won it. Yeah.
He's fantastic. Just purely fantastic. But yeah, I'm a little surprised he's not on it. Maybe he wants a break from it as well, but Yeah. Do you guys have any thoughts on the South as well? We're we're
I
not
like the
particular.
overall. Yeah, I don't have much knowledge besides like the big time players. So
Yeah.
definitely want to be able to watch more of their games this season though.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think overall, like to kind of wrap up here, boys. I think like the sort of theme overall, like within all the other teams and divisions, is like sort of a change of the guard. Like you said, Bryan, like it just seems that like all like some of the top dog teams, some of those like notable players that you would think would be kind of in those leadership roles are kind of stepping down. And I think in a way, it is great for the league because when we talked about the whole mentorship thing, and hopefully those top level players were able to kind of pass on some of the responsibilities to give themselves a break, and it'll hopefully give them opportunity to shine even more as individuals and within the teams, and they're not having to rely like feel so burdened by all the responsibility of kind of being covered. They can just kind of focus on being the stellar athletes that they are. So I think in a way it is great for the league to see kind of that sort of changing the guard, and it'll be an exciting season. Hopefully, we'll be able to build on the parity that we saw last year, which was great for the league. So
Yeah, absolutely.
cool. So yeah, with that, we'll kind of move into our next talking point here, which was the MLQ rule release. So I'll just quickly pull up that article that MLQ released. So again, this is on, for those that haven't had a chance to see it. This was posted back on March 22nd of this year. So MLQ is always to remain on the cutting edge of gameplay within our sport. That said, overall, we're largely satisfied with the way our rule set worked during the 2021 season, which I think, unfortunately, we weren't able to play, but I think kind of being able to watch footage, we could probably all agree with that. Because of that, we will not be making we will be making no major changes for the 2020. Instead, we'll be making some minor alterations that we will think or that we think will optimize our game. So we'll quickly go through some of these. So the highlights that they have here, the first one being resets. So as we've shown many times throughout the years, we've had plenty of pretty regularly things to increase the pace of the play and reduce the use of slow ball, provided we can do so in a way that does not negatively affect the quality of our gameplay. One thing we have realized is that while limiting teams to one reset per possession did limit their ability to stall, it remained almost impossible for a defense to fully press a team that still had its resets in the ball. Could run all the way back behind their hoops until machine beater was blah, blah, blah. The teams can still take their one free reset back across the midline once they sit, but they can never retreat back across their own keeper zone line. This will allow for more aggressive pressing defense, and we will hope that this will heighten the pace of play. So, yeah, what do you think of this? I think it's honestly, from my opinion, I think it's awesome. But what are your thoughts on this minor rule change for the upcoming season?
Nate?
Overall, I like the change because I definitely enjoy both playing and watching more of a faster pace style of Quidditch than slow ball. It definitely also helps defenses strategizing when they press, so they actually have, like, I guess with the keep line being like the hard boundary now, if they cross that line, it's a turnover. So having that now set in place definitely helps defenses really press the other team in order to possibly force a turnover. But overall, I like it. Like, it's a small change, but I think it definitely has more benefits than cons to it. So
Yeah, I don't. Okay, I don't think it's bad. By no means, I'm not. What I'm gonna say is I don't think it's bad, but I truly don't think it's enough. This is the one rule that I honestly am pretty critical about when it comes to this like set. Um, like not necessarily downhill opinions from here, but like I agree what they're trying to do is stop slow balling. The problem will always be there. It's always the goal of people to slow your possession, get your best chance in, and score at a high percentage.
Yeah,
I agree with it. That's a good philosophy to follow. How they did it, which in MLQ, Quidditch Canada slightly differently, but for MLQ, if you get pushed across the keeper line or the mid line, regardless, that's still a reset. That's fine. That's a good rule. However, if you go all the way to like a keeper line and go past, you're done. Cool. I have no problem with that. I think that's a good idea. However, I still think people are going to abuse the fact you can go over the midline once. I don't think they're going to get as much of a desired result as they think they will when it comes to like making sure people don't go over, because they'll go over and they'll just retreat with their beaters close enough. I I like the intention, but I don't know if this will be exactly what they want. But I think it's a positive step, yet a small one.
Like, do you think they should have like some sort of shot clock where it then forces the team to actually like advance the ball? Let's say like in basketball, like if you have 24 seconds to shoot, and then if you get the rebound, you have another 14 seconds. So like you think, let's say they cross back half, and then you kind of force them to like a 14-second shot clock to kind of go back and on target.
A shot clock works great in the NBA. A shot clock works great, and I think that's the only sport it works great in. But I don't know if a shot clock's great for Quidditch, because with a really defensive structure and like hoop D, a shot's impossible. It's a turnover automatically if you don't set up properly. However, I do think they need to have some sort of possession clock that once 20 seconds, 30 seconds pass, at that point, hard, like you can't cross back. Like the midline becomes like it needs to be a progressive hard boundary. Like if you have people waiting for you right at mid, like that's not fair. That like, oh, you took you took your full body step over. Now we're pushing you back. That's a reset. Turn it over. That's not super progressive, because you get some really boring midline setup that like just a physical team kind of bullies you across. I don't think that's great. I would agree though that like if you set up and like I've thought of like, hey, what if you had a like if you pass keeper zone line or you pass the goal line and you go the ball goes past there, then it becomes a hard boundary. Then people are not going to go behind there. There's always give or take when it comes to resets, and I think time is a great avenue to do it, but I don't think forcing a shot is what should cause that like reset rule to kind of change. But yeah, I think it's a good step. I think it needs testing and more ideas need to be thrown out there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think again, I think it is a good step in the right direction. But I think it goes back to the conversation we had before about kind of finding the balance between like offense and defense. Like when two arm tackling wasn't a thing, we were stuck with the one arm tackling. Like defense was like really struggling. But now that we've introduced 2-arm tackling, it kind of shifts the balance towards defense again, right? So as you kind of start pushing that midline, reducing the sort of reset rule, you're sort of again shifting it more towards the defense, because the defense can just press you, and if they get you past the midline, you're up to speed, right? So it's again, it's really finding the balance between the two. I agree. I think that there needs to be some sort of progression, because it like honestly, slow ball is really kind of it's not great for the entertainment value of the sport. It's not great for like athletes playing the sport, because it's just slow and people want to play like somewhat fast paced. So I think. Yeah, I agree in the sense that there needs to be some sort of progressive line, but again, we have to keep in mind the balance between the offense and defense. And I think, like you said, it's just gonna take testing. So I think the smaller set may be the right call, just because we'll see how it goes. If it does progress it forward, great. And then maybe you take an additional step where it's kind of like, hey, now there's no reset at all, or you have like you said, Bryan, they have the progressive shift over like a certain time period. After 20 seconds, you can't go past keeper zone, or et cetera, et cetera. So I think, it's just going to really take some testing, and again, really making sure that we have the balance between having offenses be successful, but also making sure that defense can be equally successful.
You need rules that drive good progression in gameplay choices, and I think this is a good step to do that. I just think it's a small step, and that's all. But
yeah, for sure. Awesome. So the next one was a minor one, but we'll kind of quickly highlight it. So blue cards, since the introduction of blue cards in a sport, they have often been criticized as being unnecessary. These feelings are only heightened when we changed the yellow card regulations so that it took 3 yellow cards instead of 2 to become a red card, with almost no players receiving red cards through this accumulation. The blue and yellow cards have truly become the same foul. We feel that this shouldn't be the case, as blue cards are they are for non-dangerous and technically are technical penalties and therefore deserve a lesser punishment. To fix this, we will be reducing the length of blue card penalties to 30 seconds. So, any quick thoughts on that?
I kind of just want to eliminate blue cards altogether, honestly.
Yeah.
Like a 30-second penalty, like, I mean, something can happen in 30 seconds, but at the same time, it's like, just give them the yellow, because the odds of getting 3 yellows in a game, unless you're like a really aggressive, really like physical player, like are pretty slow or pretty slim, I would say.
Yeah.
But, and also like blue cards, like they don't add up to anything, right? So you can get like how many blue cards in the game, and like you're not going to get like, I guess maybe get a red, but technically in the rules, you won't necessarily be given a red card for getting like 6 blue cards in a game. So
yeah,
I'm not too sure how I feel about that one.
See, I'm the complete opposite, Nate. This is my favorite rule change they implemented. I think this is brilliant because like they kind of said, blue cards are still penalties. There's still things in Quidditch that you can't do, but you shouldn't be kicked out of a game for doing certain things that don't really like if a ball rolls too far and like you kick it off pitch by mistake. You deserve to be put in the box for that. Do you deserve to be kicked out of the game if your foot goes wide 3 times? No, I don't think so. Maybe you need some practice with the soccer ball. I don't disregard that, but you gotta I think this is, assuming they implement it quickly, like blue card this in the box go. Like people have to be more accepting of like, okay, whatever, it's 30 seconds, it's fast, which I think it's still enough time to get a play in, but I think at the same time, like, it's not deadly. Like, we know, like, a 2-minute red is brutal. On a beater, that's awful. Like, you can't survive. Like, you're going to get bullied for 2 minutes. 30-second blue. Like, it could rather be a beater or chaser. Either one, it's going to suck a little bit, but it's going to be short and sweet, and it's done.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I'm kind of on Nate's side in terms of blue card, and the only reason why I say this is because like I grew up playing soccer, so like there was no like other card other than yellow and red. So I think the only way that I would like potentially get rid of the blue cards is like just having a warning system. I don't really know like how logistically it would work, but essentially the way I think it might work is that like if something was to happen where it was originally a blue card for the foul, it would be a warning. And after like you've kind of had the verbal warning from the ref, then it'd be a yellow card situation. So I think that would be an interesting thing to test potentially in some sort of scrimmages, etc., to see if that sort of system would work. Because again, I think it's just me just being a traditionalist and like I think yellow and red is enough. But yeah, I don't know. It is what it is. I think I do agree in the sense that there should be something for like, less fouls, because like you don't want to be kicking players out of the game because of a blue card situation. But I guess that's where you have sort of that verbal like warning that would be kind of equivalent in soccer. That I don't think there is really equivalent between soccer and Quidditch when it comes to blue cards. But I think maybe that'd be interesting to kind of test is like having a verbal warning system where it progresses further after that. Then it's okay. Now you're gonna get a yellow card because I told you not to do that and you still did it. But yeah, I don't know. It's definitely an interesting debate for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm curious they called like last season, for example, compared to I guess yellows and reds, and like if the number is big enough where the card is still necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see kind of because they say in the article that it hasn't really like led to a red like dismissal from a game, but it'd be interesting to see from last year to this year how this rule kind of impacts the number of cards and number of penalties you see. But yeah, I guess what kind of time will tell with that. But so next talking about here was timeouts. So we felt that regulations around calling timeouts or regulations around calling timeouts were needlessly restrictive, as long as lull in the game could be effectively determined. A judgment referees were already making with prior rule. We wanted to allow timeouts to be called, so we are doing away with the restrictions. The ball must be in the possession of the keeper, and then it must be in the team's keeper zone. Additionally, we are allowing timeouts to be called in the second period of the game after the snitch is caught, since emphasis is no different than the secret floor period. So thoughts on the timeout rule change?
I think it's pretty logical. Like I think we have this in Canada. Kyle has to remind me because we haven't talked to him a while about it. But it's logical. Like snitch on pitch, no go, makes sense. Snitch off pitch, like they're done. Like they said, it's just quaffle play. So assuming there's a lull and it's a judgment call that's fair, and you're not stopping someone on a breakaway, yeah, I think it's good, good, easy, positive progression.
Yeah. What do you think, Nate?
I mean, as a first-time coach, I'm definitely in favor of that rule. But also, I think it's just a logical change. From my understanding, it's like any quaffle player can call for a timeout and can also coach from the sideline call the timeout as long as the ref hears them. Is that how that works as well?
I'd have to read the rule books, but I think basically, yeah, it's just kind of like, hey, timeout. Like I'm calling it now. It's simple. It's quick. There's been so many changes in it over the last couple of years. But like, assuming you have the ball, like there's no like active crazy thing going on. Yeah, that's who's calling it. So
This may be a hot take, but I think the timeout should be like kind of like in like in football where you can call a timeout to ice the kicker. I feel like that would be awesome if they had like you don't have to be in possession of the waffle and you can just say okay timeout and like to stop a fast break or to like to kill momentum in a game. I think that would be like awesome. I don't think it will ever happen, but I think that would be such a cool change to the whole timeout thing. To see kind of like I said having that sort of similar dynamic when you can ice a kicker because that's like. I honestly I hate when it happens to my team, but honestly when our team does to someone else, it's kind of funny, and it does work surprisingly a lot more than you might think. How that would translate to Quidditch, I don't know. Especially if they're in a fast break, I think probably gonna score regardless. But hey, never know. Cool. So hop into the next one. Gender max. So we're always looking for ways in which our rules and gameplay policy can increase equity in the sport. We have observed the execution and reception of the permanent 4 gender maximum in both USQ and IQA rule sets, and have come away impressed by both its reception and execution. We will be changing our gender max rule to be 4 at all times in gameplay. So thoughts on this one?
Good, easy move. Like I don't think there's much to criticize here. You're following up with what everyone else basically in the world does. Yeah, I think this is the no-brainer out of all of them. I've always found it a little weird that MLQ stuck to the 2-min rule and instead implementing the 4 max now. I think it's just kind of keeps everything constant no matter what league you're playing in. So good move.
Yeah, pretty straightforward. There, no complaints.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's simple, straight to the point. Like it. Okay, and last one they have in their article here is with regards to contact. So after debuting the 2-arm tackling in 2019, we have continued to see a positive effect on gameplay and overall positive community response to it, as all 3 of us can attest to. However, there were some small alterations we felt were necessary. After observing USQ's increased scope with contact from behind, it was determined that it had a net positive impact on the game. Given the freedom when a player turns their back was seen as generally positive change, and one we will add to the rules. And then just wraps up by saying MLQ rules community looks forward to seeing how all these updated rules play out in the 2022 season, and you can find a list of the rules on the website. So yeah, we'll wrap up I guess with this whole new rule change to contact.
So just to clarify, because I did take a look at this before, as far as I'm aware, what this is limited in scope to is if a player is standing still, or I don't know if I'm right here, but I think like if you are barely moving, like if you take one step, you're still considered like standing still. But if you are not in motion, like in any significant way, you are allowed to be tackled from behind. You're assuming it's still 2-arm wraps. Basically, it's so that like you're not like like someone could basically, it's not like they can't take a running charge at you and deck you from behind. Like that's a no-go. It's more of like, hey, we're like, turn your back to me and you're right in front of me. Like I can still tackle you. Yeah. It's basically to prevent like the turn and oh wait, no, I have to position myself like around, and it's that awkward kind of shuffle that you'd see at like a middle school dance. But yeah, it's very limited in scope, and basically it's just to make sure that like if someone's just like turning very slightly, you're not going to get like a sudden yellow that will kick you out of the game on basically nothing. So I really haven't seen it been used in action yet. I haven't watched a ton of USQ footage, but they say it's good. I'm cool with smart contact changes. Yeah.
I'm a bit scared for this one. Having a bad back, I don't want to get like tackled from behind. Of course, if someone's making a charge, and obviously that's going to be a penalty. I'm just kind of curious like what the fine line would be between like what I have to be aware that they're trying to tackle me, or what I have to like. Yeah, that's one thing, and then also like how much force can they put into the tackle from behind if I do intentionally back to them. Like, can they full out like take me out from behind, or do they have to kind of just wrap me and kind of just take me to the ground? I'm not too sure how that will work, but
yeah,
I think it's kind of like rule changes. Sorry, Ryan. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna quickly say like I think like with the rule change like this, it's kind of like I think we've had a conversation about this, but the whole spirit of the rule thing. Like I think what the rule is trying to address, hopefully, will be addressed, and it won't be kind of carried over into situations where, like you're saying, Nate, where like it becomes a situation where you're kind of worried about like like seriously getting hurt, because obviously we don't want that to happen, and we don't want that aggressive tackles from behind and like blindside kind of hits. I do agree though that I think like it's a necessary change in terms of like because I know I've done it personally where like you're going into a tackle and someone kind of turns sideways, so you have to like kind of pull back a bit, and that like slight hesitation will like lead to a pass that can lead to a goal. So I'm hoping that the spirit of the rule and what it's trying to address in terms of getting rid of that like kind of like sort of like sudden like turning motion, like hopefully it addresses that. But I hope again at the same time I hope that they are educating refs when it comes to that like aggressive like full on hit from behind kind of tackle.
So I pulled up the rules real quick. Basically, they just have one section highlighted. You could pull up the USQ 13 rule book, I believe, and 6.1.10. There's ABC. The C is if the defender has stopped their momentum and is stationary with 2 feet planted, wraps from behind are also legal. So basically, yes, you have to be stopped. There's no running move. It's like there's also things in there talking about like jostling for position and stuff like that. So I think it's a very limited specific scope. And if I am interpreting that properly, good. If there's, like you said, Gabe, like there's not spirit of the rules things happening, that's bad. Mm-hmm. So keep it small and limited. Cool. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. So we'll quickly wrap up then the episode with just wanted to highlight this. It was actually in my junk mail, which is kind of sad because it was pretty cool what MLQ is doing. But so MLQ released. I got this a couple. I guess it was 2 weeks ago now. So MLQ is doing a newsletter. So it's called Drive and Dish. So the initial newsletter talks about sort of what the Drive and Dish is going to be about. When they're going to be posting it. So it looks like during the regular season, it will be released every week, which is super exciting. And then during the off season, it'll be posted monthly to keep everyone up to date with what's going on in MLQ. Overall, I think it's a great initiative to keep athletes and I don't know if they're going to be sending it to fans, but athletes and coaching staffs will be kind of informed on what's going on within the league, which is always great. But yeah, within this initial newsletter, they kind of talk about tryouts. They have information about the practice squad registration. They also highlight the rules that we just post we just kind of went through, as well as kind of talking about what we've also talked about in previous episodes, which is the MLQ Championship weekend returning to Howard County, as well as the MLQ North Division location being revealed, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I just want to quickly ask you guys real quick, is there anything that you'd like to see out of the Drive and Dish newsletter? Like, is there any sort of topics or anything that you'd find interesting that you'd like to see in the future releases?
Yeah, so one thing I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing in the newsletter as the season progresses is kind of sort of like a player of the week highlight from like one player from each division, and kind of getting the opportunity for like the community to get to know a bit more about the players within the league, and be able to kind of maybe have like an interview offhand and be able to like upload that interview and kind of post that interview in the newsletter for players to get to know players around the league, and just be able to kind of just see who's within the league, and be able to kind of showcase some of the lesser known players, letting some of the lesser known like star players in the league, and just having that would be a pretty cool thing for sure.
Give me some stats. That's what I want. But yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think it's cool. I just hope that people find it. That's my biggest hope.
Yeah, because like I said, I'm found it by junk mail, which is kind of sad. So hopefully the MLQ continues to kind of promote it, and more people will get their hands on it. But yeah, though, I guess we'll wrap it up there then, boys. We'll do our classic who were the toque segment. I have my notes, or who were the crown. Shout out to Steve Dangle podcast. But yeah, who were the toque? So do you guys have any? I guess we'll go first. I have my toque. I want to give it to this week, so I just want to quickly pull up the Facebook post here. Come on now. I guess I don't really need it. It was so the other night the Cleveland Rift. So my toque goes to the Cleveland Rift. They were on the court of the Cleveland Cavaliers game, which is super exciting. I guess it was a halftime show. So I just want to shout out to Cleveland Rift and MLQ again for continuing to promote sport and some of the biggest leagues in North America within the NBA. So shout out to Cleveland. Congratulations to all the players. Hopefully that was a pretty exciting experience to be on the court. And shout out to you guys. You get my toque this week.
Nate, you want to go? I hope you don't steal mine.
That was the one I had. But just to add on to that, I think it's pretty cool to have the exposure, like MLQ teams getting the exposure to kind of be recognized on like those bigger platforms. Like being able to play Quidditch on a NBA court is pretty cool. And then I know in QC, I believe it was the University of Ottawa, they played on TD or at TD Place, so the football stadium in Ottawa for the Ottawa Red Blacks a couple seasons ago for like a halftime show sort of thing. So I think it's pretty cool, and hopefully like we'll be able to see like a lot more teams, especially up here in Canada, being able to like take advantages of the facilities that we have and be able to like kind of showcase our sport to the public. So it's definitely cool to see teams like Cleveland be able to do that down in the States.
Awesome. You didn't take mine. So I'm going to divert away from Canada and go right to Toronto. Shout out to Austin Matthews for getting 50 goals. I think that was like Saturday. He hit it. Forget that. He has now got a hat trick tonight. As we are recording, he's at 54, which ties the Leaf all-time goal record for a season. There are still like 12, 13 games left. So we saw something that hasn't happened in our lifetimes for any Leaf fans, and we are just about to see history for like all of Leafs history, which is like more than 100+ years old. So yeah, really cool. I'm gonna go watch those back once we're done recording. Also, Steve Dangle, who we all like follow and do like know from like their podcast. Steve got mentioned on the broadcast tonight randomly, which was really weird for a guy who started on YouTube and now has made a career out of it. So yeah, that's sick.
Yeah, he works for Sportsnet, so I figure
the
announce team probably knows him. So
yeah. And yeah.
Cool. One last thing. When I know you mentioned Toronto, I can't believe none of us even said it. But shout out to our Canadian boys. First time in the World Cup since it's been 36 years. Huge win at BMO Field. Some of my friends were actually there. When they clinched against Jamaica. I know they lost their last game, but still, that's fantastic. I'm super excited to watch the World Cup. So we'll give them an honorable toque as well for their qualifying for the World Cup. So Yeah.
Who's Canada facing in World Cup, which is in November, which I found out, which is really weird, but I guess makes sense because it's Qatar.
Yeah, that's FIFA corruption for you. But no, they honestly. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to ramble too long because I love soccer and talking about forever. But yeah, they're honestly, I think they have a pretty tough group. Like it's definitely not the easiest of the groups. Like they're in their group, they have Belgium, Morocco, and Croatia. So they have this 2 European teams. Croatia's kind of on a little bit of downturn. Like their goal, like they peaked probably a few years ago. Like they played France in the World Cup final. So, yeah, it'll be a tough group. But Canada's got a really good team. I think Canada's kind of entering into a golden generation. So, you never know what can happen in like some like tournaments like World Cup, like the tournament sort of play. So, it's definitely exciting, and I'm hoping that they do well. So.
I'm just hoping USA loses to England, which I actually, I don't know, because I think it would be good. I think it would be funny, but I don't know. There's no like real win scenario there. I would like to see both of them just kind of be frustrated because I think it would be funny, but I don't know. I think Canada could have got a worse draw, but I'll take it.
I mean,
I'll take it.
At least they qualified unlike Italy, so
yeah,
it's definitely a good thing for them.
Ow. But yes, you're 100% spot on.
My condolences to any Italian fans that are listening to the podcast. That one definitely stung. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. Thanks everyone kind of for tuning in to this episode of the podcast. We'll be back next week, continuing our series of Quidditch outside the X and O's, which is a lot of fun. Hopefully, continue that for a few more episodes. So we'll be back for that. And quickly plug our socials. So Nate has us on our Instagram. It's No Beater Podcast. So follow us along there for up-to-date updates on podcast release. And yeah, like I said, we'll be back next week with another episode of the podcast. So I'll see everyone then.